afternoon, everyone, and I'd like to welcome you to our Building Wealth and Bridging the Gap panel discussion. First, I'd like to send a special thank you to Doreen Williams, the University of Miami, and the Black Alumni Society that has made this a wonderful opportunity over the next 3 days for us to focus on Black excellence. My name is Kimberly Evans, and I am the founder of KP Evans Financial, the author of Get Your Money Right, the 7 Keys to Unlocking a Better Financial Future, and Drop the Debt Weight. And last but not least, I am the proud University of Miami alumni. So it's my honor to moderate this impressive group of dynamic community and business leaders as we discuss the racial wealth gap in America and some practical solutions that you can take and apply personally to change it. Before I get started, I do want to let you know that since we're on the Hop-In platform, there is a chat feature where you can enter any questions that you may have for our panelists, and we will be sure to try to respond to those questions at the end of today's session. So without further ado, let me introduce our panel. First, we have Carolyn Blaze. Carolyn Blaze is originally from Orlando, Florida. He has been a proud member of the Metro Detroit resident. Well, actually, he's a proud Metro Detroit resident for the past 23 years. So I know you're cold up there, Carolyn. And he graduated also from the University of Miami with a major in business entrepreneurship. And after college, he joined the NFL's Detroit Lions from 1998 until 2003 as an offensive lineman. Now, for those football buffs out there, that does mean that he actually had the opportunity to play with Barry Sanders. And also during his time as a Lion, Carolyn was blessed enough to use his business degree to start his own company in the construction industry with his business partner, Chris Kuzak. Now, Blaze Contracting has been going strong for the past 21 years, working on major site developments with companies like MGM, Motor City Casinos, Ford, GM, Chrysler, DMC, Bullmount, and the Little Caesars Arena. Next, we have Bill Cheeks, who is president of ABBA Associates Incorporated, a Powder Springs, Georgia-based fiscal management consulting firm that provides counseling and conducts seminars nationwide to help consumers map a successful life plan. Bill was a consultant to the Jumpstart Coalition for Personal Finance Literacy. In that capacity, he served as the Eastern States Regional Director until just recently in 2020. He started the coalition to improve credit education in April 2016, and he now serves as the Executive Director. Going back a little further, Bill actually joined Equifax Incorporated in October 1967 in Washington, D.C. In his roles, he held key management positions, serving at the highest levels of executive leadership until his departure in 1992. Next, we have Gerald Grant Jr., who is the president of the G Financial Group. Gerald served as the branch director of financial planning and of Equitable Advisors South Florida branch, bringing over 11 years of banking experience with Citibank as well. Gerald and his wife, Jennifer, have established a $1 million endowment, which is called the Gerald C. Grant Jr. and Jennifer Adger Grant Scholarship Fund for Florida International University students. The Grants Endowment is FIU's largest gift to date from any African-American alum. Gerald is also the author of the book, Bold Money Moves to Creating Financial Wealth, and a recent new book, which is co-authored with his son, Gerald Grant III, and it's called The Power of Generational Wealth. And last but certainly not least, we do have Bahram Sak, who is a technical visionary and a successful serial tech entrepreneur focused in media and tech spaces. Originally from Senegal, she is a University of Miami graduate also, and Bahram is the brainchild behind the very first music recognition solution launched in the United States and Canada, which is now known as Shazam around the world. So if you've ever tuned into Jamie Foxx's show, Beat Shazam, you can thank Bahram. Bahram is also currently the founder and managing partner of Founder 5 Incorporated, a startup management group focused on developing and advising ventures in various e-commerce, media, and consumer services. Bahram recently founded Quele as the latest Founder 5 portfolio company, a newly developed business-to-business wholesale sourcing marketplace for products made in Africa, focusing on quality, competitive pricing, and reliability. So please join me in welcoming our wonderful panel today. Okay, so we're going to get started. And the first question that I have for our fabulous panel is, I would like to know, what does wealth mean to you? And we can start with Bill.
Wealth to me, yes. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be with you, and thanks, Kamala, for the very fine introduction. Wealth to me actually means accumulating assets that you can pass on from generation to generation. Unfortunately, so many African Americans are thinking just about their lifetime, but not about future generations. And this is one of the reasons for the wealth gap between white families versus many African American families.
So you're essentially saying focusing on the now and not the future, right? In terms of that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And Bahram, what's your definition of wealth? You're muted. Okay.
I hope you can hear me and that there's not a delay here with the connection, but really appreciate the invitation to be here and be able to share with the UM team.
We're glad to have you here.
For me, happy to be here. So for me, wealth, it's an interesting term, because I think when we think about it, we first think about money. But in my personal life, wealth has always been having the ability to find your own independence, and having the ability to actually push forward basically to be able to create what you're here to do in this world. And that's truly my definition of wealth. And that doesn't necessarily only mean doing it through financial means. You need sometimes those financial means to be able to do it, but there's a lot of other personal things that come into play that we could talk about. So hopefully that makes sense.
So it kind of sounds like what your definition also encompasses, walking out your purpose in life, right? That's what it is.
That's part of yes, it? Especially coming from as an entrepreneur. I think as an entrepreneur, I always say you don't necessarily build a company with the goal to just go ahead and sell or whatever else. It's being able to build on top of it and be able to create something larger out of something that you started. So it comes with a lot of other things into play. Yes.
Great, thanks. Gerald, would you be willing to share your definition with us? I'm very interested to hear what you say, given the title of your recent book.
Thank you very much for having me today. For me, this has been a journey of financial literacy and sharing information with others. Wealth for me is having enough so that my family and everyone that I care about can be taken care of. In addition to that, leaving a legacy so that not only our children, but our children's children can have the life that others have enjoyed. And in many cases, we're the first generation that are being able to do that. And we could build a legacy just like others have.
Mm-hmm. And I see your beautiful, I think some of those are family photos behind you. So thinking about those family members as we, build that wealth, which, letting that legacy live on, right?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. And then Carolyn, what's your definition of wealth?
Thanks again, Kibala, for inviting me to come to this session. I greatly appreciate it. This is awesome. This is great. Again, all you guys hit it right on the head. You nailed it. Bill, you nailed it. Gerald, you nailed it. Brom, you guys nailed it. But to me, wealth to me is actually financial freedom. You know, financial freedom, being able to do what I want to do. I wake up in the morning and just, if I decide not to do anything, I don't have to do anything. If I decide to go to work, I go to work. If I decide to buy a company, I go to buy a company. Wealth to me, not only for family, which I definitely agree, leave a legacy for the family, you know, and having tremendous amount of money, have assets, but ultimately it's all about that financial freedom for me.
Thank you, Carolyn. And it's such a pleasure to have all of you on the panel today. So now let's just take a closer look at what the racial wealth gap actually looks like right now in America. We're going to go ahead and take a closer look at this racial wealth gap and just give them a few moments. They're queuing up a video. Thanks. We're not hearing any sound, Alba, because it looks like you're muted. So if you could start again with some sound, please.
Racial wealth gap is a measure of the white family and the African American family that's right smack dab in the middle, the median.
The median white household's wealth, their savings, assets minus their debts, is $171,000. The median black households is $17,600. And that gap is still growing and growing. Why?
Thank you very much. So the racial wealth gap right now, when we look a little closer, if you consider those figures, we are looking at for every $100 of a white family's wealth, the Black family has essentially $10. So when you reflect on this racial wealth gap in America, what do you think contributed the most to this disparity? And I want to start with you, Gerald.
It starts with, if your parents had money, to build on it. But in many cases, we're the first generation that's building that. So it's about owning companies. It's about being able to hire people in your community. So when the economy is rough and you work for someone, you may get laid off. But if your parents own the company, you never really laid off. So your economics still continue to grow. So I think the key is the fact that we need to start to do more business with each other. So we create more business owners that create our own wealth that we can control, because we have money, we just spend it, but we don't make it grow 10 times by staying within our communities.
Okay. So essentially you're saying we didn't have it to start with, so you don't have that inheritance, which is that legacy that you're looking to leave, right?
And that's why now it's a matter of starting. It doesn't matter where you are, you just got to start. And you can't spend all the money you have. You have to save something. So even if you had a great investment idea, you didn't have the money to invest. So we talk with people about living within their means and paying your debts first. But instead of paying your debts and everybody else, you got to pay you. So just imagine if everyone saved 10 cents from when they were a child of every dollar they received, how much money they would have today. So the idea is we can't change the past, but we can control the future, and the future starts with what we can do now to build going forward.
Right. Carolyn, do you have anything else that you'd like to add in terms of what has caused this racial wealth gap? It's right now, those numbers, it's the biggest that it's been since the 60s.
Well, right now I have 3 financial advisors. I'm thinking about hiring Gerald right now because he's right on. Gerald's right on. You know, and this is an example I want to, share with you guys real quick. And I was listening to a podcast with ex-NFL players, right? And they talked about this same topic. Why is it the gap between black families and white families? So with us, and when the guys were talking through this podcast, and I listened, and it took to heart for me, because what they were saying is that essentially, we're the first generation of guys that just had money, right? So anytime when a family has money, especially with the white family, all that money flows downward to their kids. Whereas us as black men, we just got the money and try to take care of our family, try to take care of our mom, our sisters, our brothers. And then once you're done, where's the money go, right? So absolutely, I agree with Gerald. It's all about saving. It's all about paying yourself first. All right. It's all about paying yourself first and paying off your debts, and absolutely saving for the future. And there's buckets to it. So I totally agree. And that's it.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Carolyn. It's interesting that you brought that up, because studies have shown that if you take a white student and a black student and they have the same degree and they go into the same profession and they have the same earnings,
right,
when you look at the wealth between the two of them after time has gone by, you will see that the white student has been able to accumulate a lot more wealth, because the black student is, what you're saying, first generational, and because they are first generational, no, they're having to help their family, and that's why they're not able to build that wealth, right? So that's a great point. Bill, what would you say?
Okay, this has several layers to it as far as I'm concerned. And as you were giving my background, I've been involved in the credit industry for over 34 years, and I've been in the financial education space since 1995. When I first started in the financial education space, and this is to educate young people how money works, what happens. That's the one of the big challenges we have. We don't understand the importance, number one, of a credit score. I teach that, and you need to learn that early on. I tell students in school, you are learning about a credit score in school. It is your GPA, and then what you get on your SAT, ACT. They are 3 numbers normally, and that's what you're doing is developing behaviors that drive that credit score. But I'll just give you one example. You buy a $25,000 car. If you have a 620 credit score, you're going to pay $577 per month for that car. But if you have a 720 credit score, you're going to pay $457 a month for the same car, or you're going to pay $7,000 less for that vehicle because of your credit score, which is based on your behavior and how you have managed your money. As Gerald said, we don't talk about money enough and how you are able to accumulate wealth because as Carolyn said, we also are looking at how we help our families, because many of them have credit scores, and we co-sign for them to get a car or other things, and it's just a vicious cycle. I'm sorry I'm taking so long, but this is an issue that I wanted to put out there. But we don't make those decisions because we are bad people. We just have not been exposed to just the financial area. How many households do we have, except mine? My son said, if you grew up in the household of the credit man, you would know that you don't do this. I have family members now, they said, well, let's call Uncle William because he's going to tell us what we don't want to know, but we know we need to know it. So it's just, we've got to talk a lot more about money and finances and credit scores and all of that. So that's my take on it, Kimberly.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, Bill, because, the credit, you're paying a lot of costs not having a good credit score, not only financially, as you've outlined, but some jobs. If you don't have the right credit score, then you're not going to get hired for that job. Also, you'd be paying more for your insurance. There's just so many, it causes a ripple effect. Yes. And when we look at, we'll talk a little bit more about home ownership. That is one of the biggest stumbling blocks that we have in terms of being able to secure that. And it's so interesting when I think about the community, and I'm just going to go back to a long time ago when I was in my 20s and I went out to a club. And you know how they get on the microphone? If you've ever been to a club, they get on the microphone and say, if you got this, raise your hand. They said, if you got bad credit, raise your hand. I'm like, oh my gosh. Everybody I see, I'm not, Like, is that something to celebrate? Really? I just was like, that I was just floored by that, So how about you, Bahram? What would you say has contributed to this disparity that we see here?
Wow. Well, has been said, and having sort of lived in the US, but also been spending a lot of time here in Africa, honestly, it's the same challenge when it to support your community. I remember my sister and I, while we were in college, we were also paying for my younger brother and younger sister's school, and also paid for their college. Wow. That makes it, and I remember always asking them, which one of your friends can you tell me has their siblings paying for their college, right? But that also brought in a whole other question, because it was very interesting to see that. I think for me, it was also a lack of information. Once you have a little bit of money, like let's say when I first sold my company, you actually don't even know what to do with that money. And you don't have examples around that can help guide you without you having to maybe trust a financial advisor. But at the time, I was too young, and I would get different emails from different people to say, you just sold your company, can I advise you? But I don't know who these people are. So there's a level of trust within the community that is lacking. I think that we should be able to, we're able to help each other out to understand what we need to do, because there's a true cultural challenge, a true cultural game that comes into play, which also says, I know even if we're here in Senegal, and I would say in general in Africa, it's not even good to talk about wealth. Look down at wealth when you try to be sometimes a little selfish, say, I need to invest in this before I can help you. And so these are things that I think will take some time, but the more examples we have around us, hopefully the more things will change. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure from just the community, the family, and everything else that makes it very difficult to make these decisions. So we can talk about it, but then when it's time to practice it, it's actually very hard.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's very interesting to hear the perspective of, within the United States and also abroad in terms of the financial, what's happening within the family, right? When it comes to finances. So that's a great segue into my next question, which is, how do you think we can bridge the gap? And, in terms of what actions can we take? I know that one that Bahram just mentioned is just, once you do have the money, how do you know how to spend it, like how to handle it? Do we just want to blind trust people that are called a financial advisor? I don't think so. I mean, when we look at sports, there's a number of athletes that have sued their so-called financial advisors for losing millions of dollars. When you look at Terrell Owens, he was in a tearful, I don't know if you guys saw this, he was in tears talking about his mortgage and how his financial advisor was supposed to pay it, and he didn't. So definitely, I think when it comes to money, it's very important that you take control of your finances and that you are not, like Bahram said, she took some scrutiny, just because they are a financial advisor, there's a way that you can kind of go check their background. Are there any complaints and stuff like that? So I guess I want to start there in terms of how can we bridge that gap and look at different actions that can be taken, even for our audience here, that they can take to build wealth. Let's start with you, Gerald.
That's a great question. Just like if you moved to a new community and you wanted to find out about schools, or you wanted to find about a doctor, you talk with the people you know and you ask them for a referral, a reference. In this financial services business, it's all about trust. And you want someone that's going to cover your back, not that they're covering their backs. And this is a small world. I mean, a reputation, all it takes is just one little thing, and you can destroy your reputation. But I see it's like almost like in how you would look at professional sports and football. For many years, you would have outstanding quarterbacks that were African American, and when they went to the NFL, they made them wide receivers. They wouldn't let them play quarterback. It's the same thing in the financial services business now. There's nothing that I need to know that I can't know within 24 hours because everything is on the internet. Every aspect of creating wealth is available, but it's just like having the wrong doctor. The person may have a doctor behind their name, but are they really good at what they do? And are they the best physician for you? It's the same thing when it comes to financial services. All my clients now are referred to me because of what I've done 10, 15 years ago. And now we have the third generation. We had where the grandparents were clients. We now have the parents now that were going to college at the time. Now they're having kids, and their kids are now getting to the age where they're getting married and starting their families. And we're serving all three generations. So it's that trust factor that's necessary. You don't know what you don't know. And you can try to figure this stuff out on your own, but it's always best to have a professional that gives you guidance. And as a result of that, if you just do the background check, you can find out who are reputable. There's always going to be the bad people out there, but there are more good ones than there are bad.
Bill, do you have anything you want to add in terms of how we can bridge this gap?
Yes. It's a word, but it's really important. A budget. How many people have a budget? But not just have a budget, to know what percentages should go into different categories of your budget. What percent of your money should go toward buying a car? What percentage of your money should go toward living expenses from a housing standpoint? Because there's a difference if you are renting and plan to own a house in the future as to how much you pay for rent and what percent you put away for down payment on a house later on. Should you lease a car or should you personally finance the car? How much should you put on credit cards and many other areas. But that's the input I'm going to have there. And of course, in getting a financial advisor, you need to know about an organization known as FINRA. They keep, and Gerald certainly knows that company, they will tell you whether the financial advisor who's pitching you is a reputable financial advisor, what kind of complaints they have gotten. So
or even licensed.
Yeah,
right?
or even if they do have a license, because a lot of times they don't. And I was interested in Carolyn's comments. He said he has 3 financial advisors. I have 2, and I check my statements, and they know I'm comparing what they are doing with my money, and we have a quarterly checkup. I don't just give them my money and not know what's happening. It's just like people say, well, you were mentioned Terrell Owens. I pay my own bills. Everybody should. Oprah does. So you don't depend on somebody else to handle your checkbook. So as you can tell, I have real opinions on a lot of these items.
Yes. Thank you, Bill. Carolyn, do you have anything else that you'd like to add on how we can bridge this gap and what kind of skills we need to have and leverage in the Black community to change this around? Carolyn, you're on mute.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. Common sense, doing your due diligence. A lot of people have common sense. When you have a lot of money, okay, the first thing you do is buy the best jewelry out there, the best car out there. And you're not thinking about tomorrow. You're not thinking about, how to prolong this cash. So it's all about common sense. Do your due diligence. And Bill, you are exactly right. Both guys, Gerald, Bill, you guys, I'm telling you, I don't have to say anything because you guys pinpoint it on the head. I could learn a lot from you guys. I'm telling you. I mean, I've learned this throughout many a times throughout the years. And there were some bad financial advisors I had in the past. And I stopped saying, hey, you know what? I'm stopped dealing with one financial advisor. I'm going to have 2 or 3, right? Working these, having these money and giving different ideas, Not one person is just going to take care of everything for me. Nope. We have 3, and we make a collective decision on what we do. But again, common sense, do your due diligence. And like you said, Bill, budget. It's like a bad word. Budgeting is like a bad word in the Black community to me. Budget. You do what? Yeah, I budget. You cheap. No, I'm not cheap. I'm budgeting. I'm frugal. It's like, come on, guys. But I absolutely agree with both gentlemen. And Bram, I'll probably agreeing with you pretty soon here too.
One important point there with what Carolyn's talking about is if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. A lot of these get rich quick schemes, that's one of the ways that people lose their money. And Bahram, you brought up a point earlier in terms of the openness to the topic of money, how people don't want to talk about money. Do you think having that conversation could help us do a better job with our money, Bahram? Or what do you think is the solution?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bigger topic for me, I think, and everything has been said, but I think before we can even start thinking about getting a financial advisor, we're calling somebody that is from our family that already has done it and could help us with some advice from the time we're very.
Bahram, you're cutting in and out, at least for me. Can you all hear her?
Have made the mistakes being able to share that knowledge with the next generation. But I think one of the things that we also, when I talk about being able to talk about money, also means being able to trust each other. And the truth of the matter is that right now we're talking during Black History Month. This is the UN Black Alumni Society. And so what we're really is a community that's starting behind. We are behind, and we have to admit that. And the problem is that usually when you are behind, you tell yourself, there's no point in me doing it because I don't have that $1 million. I don't have that $100,000 to start a business. I don't have that $10,000 to start a business. So where can I find that money? And we can try to do, knowing that we are a new generation that's trying to build this wealth, is actually to try to get together. And if each person does have $1,000, we can get to that $10,000 to do that business. That means that we will likely not get as rich as quickly as the person that puts in $10,000, but at least we're starting somewhere. But I think that's really the most important thing, especially when we're talking about students. It's you need to be able to start somewhere, and it doesn't have to be big, but you can learn these lessons when you start small and you build on top of that, and be comfortable being able to go and talk to people and say, I actually need this money to do this, and be very clear about what you're doing it for. So it's a very complex, I think, situation, but we'll.
And you bring up an interesting point, because I think about Jeff Bezos. His mom invested in his company, and I believe she invested thousands of dollars, and just believing in him and kind of Amazon growing, those thousands and dollars of investment has turned into millions of dollars, right? So when you're talking about the seed money for businesses and growing that seed so that you can create more wealth and opportunity, right, for your investors. Okay. So when we take a closer look, we touched on this a little bit, but according to the real estate brokerage firm Redfin, when we look at homeownership, 40% of Black Americans actually owned their own homes in 2020, whereas 74% of white Americans did. So how do you think that we can create more Black homeowners in America? Bill?
The number has gone up a little bit, according to NAREB. This is the Black real estate folks, and I follow them and know the executive director and everything of that organization. They have had a major focus on that. But here's where it had gone up during the Bush administration, but then you had all of the different scams, as I call them, in the market, and had people buying a house that was worth $100,000, but they could get a $115,000 mortgage, and they were told that the value is always going to go up. And then you know what happened in 2007 to 10. The market just fell out, and that really is what impacted the African American households. Now think about this. Think about a child growing up in a home, and then their parents lose a home, and they're living with family and all of that. Psychologically, think about what that does to them. Do I want to own a home? And this is what has created many of the challenges. And again, I hate to do it, but go back to the credit score. It is 300 to 850. In order to buy a home, you need to have, of course, down payment, but there are a number of down payment products that are out there now to provide assistance, especially a first-time homeowner. But if your credit score, which many of us are below 600, and you need to have a credit score of at least 640, even then you're going to pay high interest rates and all of that. So we need to look at how can we better educate our folks on, number one, saving money, have in that budget, have at least 10% toward savings, toward a house, and then making sure the number one area of your credit score is paying bills on time, all the time. You can miss one payment and it can drop your credit score 50 to 110 points, according to Fair Isaac or FICO, and it will take you at least 9 to 12 months to get back to the score you were prior to missing that payment. So it's critical to make payments on time, all the time, and in that way build the credit score. And I can get into some other things later on that I really want to get to your audience as far as this credit score situation, because it can be a great benefit to everyone as far as this wealth building. We don't want money just to go out to these corporations, and they actually structure things just for us, and because they know we want different products. If you hear no credit, bad credit, anything, we can get you in this product, that's a bad deal. And they know it's a bad deal, but they know you're going to go after it because you have bad credit. It's unfortunate that you said in a nightclub, who has bad credit, and people raise their hand. I would never raise my hand for that, but we do.
No, thank you, Bill. You made a lot of excellent points there regarding home ownership. Now, when we look at lending and we look at every place we've been, I was very surprised to see that one of the other factors that African Americans face is predatory lending, right? So even people that clearly have credit scores over 800, there were actually mortgage companies that during the 2008 that got sued because they were still pushing subprime and terrible products to these people that are highly qualified and could have gotten fixed low rates. So it's very important, I feel, to be financially literate, because when you are financially literate, you're going to be less likely to fall for these scams. And you know, when you go to the car dealership, one of the things that they always say is, what do you want your payment to be? No, it's not about the payment. I need to know the cost, right? And I need to know what the interest rate is. It's very important. And also not to feel, at least when it comes to African-American women, sometimes we just feel that we can't negotiate or stuff like that, but making sure that you are willing to negotiate. You're going to be the best. No one is going to care more about your money than you. So it's very important that you treat it like that. When it comes to personal finance, get personal, because it's all about you, right? So now I want to shift to banking. And Gerald, I know you had experience being at Citibank, and one of the problems that we're seeing in underserved community is a problem of unbanked. People are unbanked or underbanked. One time I was talking to someone who was college educated, and she said, I'm college educated, but I don't have a bank account. And or she had a bank account, but she still went and bought money orders because she didn't trust the bank. So can you help us understand a little bit more about the unbanked problem right now and what we could be doing to save more money? Because it's very odd to me, because as Bill pointed out earlier, people that have poor credit scores pay more, and people who do not have bank accounts pay more for other costs and services. So Gerald.
So it goes back to that information. You have to start to educate yourself somewhere. So talk with someone that you know that's a good steward of money. When it comes to, it goes back to the budgeting, what Bill said. I think in many cases we try to buy too many things, and we buy more things than we can actually afford. So now if you have more bills going out than money coming in, it just becomes a domino effect. If you miss one payment, then you think it's cool, and you miss another payment, but it's just impacting your credit score. And your credit scores also impact you with your ability to also get a bank account, because they do check that stuff. So what I would recommend, you got to start with your own budget. You got to start with paying yourself first. And then you want to build up 6 months emergency fund, and I call it being your own bank. So now, if you want to buy something, instead of putting it on the credit card, you pay cash for it and you pay yourself back. So just imagine if you, when you bought your first car, and then after you paid off the car, you pretend you still had the car payment and you were saving it. Now you have the money that when you get ready to buy the next one, now you can play let's make a deal because you have cash. Cash is always king. But the idea is you can always spend more than you make. So that's why you always have to, the first thing you got to do is to live within your means.
Mhm.
First, you got to pay you got to pay your debts, and you got to put away some funds for a rainy day. Last year was perfect. We could not have predicted COVID was going to happen, but it was not just a rainy day, it was a rainy year. So if you didn't have emergency funds that were set aside for 3 months, 6 months, or a year, you're actually was short. So I think everyone could use that as a lesson learned. If we didn't do it before, we really now have to start putting funds away. And it doesn't matter, it's not what you make, it's what you do with it. I have clients that make 10% of what most people make, and they're still living within their budget. And you have people that make hundreds of thousands of dollars and living paycheck to paycheck. It's because they're just spending too much.
Right.
So the idea is you just can't buy everything you want. And the things you buy, you should buy, in most cases, you should save for it and buy it. That's how our parents used to do it. They didn't buy stuff on credit cards and they did fine. And I think credit cards just make things easy, and sometimes easy is not best for you.
Right. And also all the marketing. We're bombarded by marketing, and it's this buy now, pay later philosophy. I think that takes hold. So Carolyn, we're going to shift gears. Earlier, the panel was talking about building wealth, and we talked a little bit about entrepreneurship. When I look at the billionaires that are on the list, I think there's over 640 billionaires, and of them, about 7 are African American. Most of them, what they have in common is they either did investments or there's someone that started their own IT company. You have music, you have investments, you have a media, Oprah Winfrey, Tyler Perry just made it in film and TV. So this is my question for you, because I know going to University of Miami, at least when we were at school, when you were on the football team, there was always this, oh, you're going to go to the NFL, and it's like you're striking it rich, right? Once you go to the NFL. So you had a very interesting path to becoming an entrepreneur after college.
Yeah.
One of the things that I heard Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson say is that the best thing that never happened to him is going to the NFL. Well, that happened to you.
Mm.
So can you tell us a little bit about your journey on how you decided to become an entrepreneur and how you did that despite having that NFL career?
Well, great question again, Kimbla. Well, the path for me was when I remember being 10, 11 years old. I asked my mom if he could buy me some British Knights. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was these type of sneakers that were just amazing. And my mom sat me down. It's like, Carolyn, let me show you all the bills I have right here. And here's my paycheck. Okay. Now, look at all these bills. If this paycheck, if there's excess money, you could buy those British Knights. If there's not, there's nothing I could do for you. And sure enough, I looked at it. It was less. The check didn't meet those bills at all. So I was like, Mom, you're right. So I went off of my day. A couple of weeks later, walked back from school, and I saw this newspaper on the ground. And a newspaper on the ground title was, "I made more money than the president." Are you kidding me? To me, President of the United States was the all be all. He was the richest, the most powerful guy in the whole world. I picked up that magazine. I wanted to read more. And I looked at it. It was a black gentleman. And I kept on reading. And he said, "Yep, I made more money than the president." And that guy was Lionel Richie. I was like, wow, he made more money than the president. That right there was my moonshot. That was my light bulb. The light bulb went bing. And I was like, from that day on forward, I will make money on my own. I'm not going to be dependent on anybody else. It's whatever I'm going to try to do, I'm going to get it, right? it just so happened as I grew, I became this big guy. I developed as a big guy. So the opportunity then became when, played in high school, and then eventually enough, I became a pretty good player, and then went off to U of M as, on a scholarship basis, full ride. And then I was not drafted. I went to the Lions, and I was not drafted. That was a big bummer for me. Was not drafted. But the Lions decided to give me a shot. While I was there, I made the team for 6 years. But my first 2, 3 years, I was sitting around, looking around the locker room. And I'm looking at guys in the locker room that is spending more than their check is, you know? They have these big gold chains. They look like they're coming off a rap video, nice cars. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, and back then, my wife, Lene, was picking me up in her hoopty. And guys used to laugh at me, because I didn't buy a new car yet. And then that was all about budgeting, like saving for me. So the first couple of years, I'm like, you know what, there's got to be a plan B. I need a plan B. I graduated with a business degree, and I need to figure out plan B. Matter of fact, I'm going to use this platform to get to where I need to be at. So again, talk to my financial advisor. Financial advisor said, Carolyn, we're going to have a client appreciation day. This is my second year in the league. Said, Carolyn, we're going to have a client appreciation day. And what we're going to do is we're going to invite you to a baseball game, and we're going to have all of our clients there. And you just be yourself. You're charismatic. Just be yourself. Walk the room. Talk to whoever. And I did that. I took that opportunity and did that. And I talked to numerous guys. And it's not till I met my partner, and we decided to talk, and we decided to say, you know what? Let's form a business. Let's do something, And this is my second year. And you hear horrible stories. I think God was on my side that day. I was very lucky to meet him. But we met and started Blaze while I was playing. Played 6 years. Started Blaze when I was playing. And on my days off, I would go straight to work. Right. So on my days off, I used to wear suit and tie, and guys were like, Carolyn, where you going? I said, I just started a company. He's like, but you're making money. I was like, well, I'm just starting this company. This is something after football. He's like, what are you doing? That's silliness, man. You just focus on football. You be straight. I was like, nah, I'm good. So while I was playing football, I had this plan B going. Because each time, when I was playing every year, guys really wanted to meet Carolyn Blaze, the football players, and knock on the door and like, hey, and they will automatically want to do business with me, right? So what I'm trying to say in essence is that I always had the passion of being my own entrepreneur. I didn't care what it was. I could have sold Avon. I could have done anything else. It's just I wanted to have that financial freedom, wealth, what we talked about earlier. I wanted that for me and my family. So 21 years later, 200 employees, working in multiple states, thinking about it, again, I was very blessed, how I was raised. My mom raised me well when she sat me down and said, look at my bill, figure it out. If you have extra money, you could buy them. And I'm very grateful to this day. So that's my background.
Thank you so much. That's just an amazing story. And your mom, I think it's so awesome that she was just honest with you.
Yep,
that's what we have to do as parents. Sometimes we can't say no, instead of saying no, even though sometimes we have to, also showing them and teaching them the real meaning. I think that's very valuable. And I think your story is so remarkable. I always love hearing it. So powerful. Now, Bahram, your path is a bit different than Carolyn's, given that you are a serial entrepreneur. Take us back to that moment in your life when you actually realized that you wanted to be on that entrepreneur path.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we have I'll try to make it very short, but I was always the one that didn't necessarily know what she wanted to do, but always knew what she didn't want to do. I stumbled upon basically computer science just because I enjoyed math, but I knew I didn't want to become a math around that area. And I know one thing that was motivating to me. I remember while I was in college, I was working on campus. I had a job at the Limited, and I started doing some programming jobs, with different companies. So I was always working while also studying. And I was always looking for the next thing. So I was always on the system. I forgot what it was called at the time. We don't have the internet really. And I was always looking at the jobs available to students. And I saw this job. It was $10 an hour or $15 an hour, and I was just like, $10 an hour? What kind of job would they pay $10 an hour? Because at the time we were making minimum wage. It was like $4, I think, and 50 cents, and I think we went all the way up to $4.75. And so for me, I was just curious to know what it was taking for somebody to pay us as students $10 an hour, and it was a computer science job. So that's really how I got. It was not necessarily the money that motivated me. I was just wondering what it was that made that difference. And I always enjoyed the challenge. So I really became an entrepreneur without necessarily knowing that I was an entrepreneur. I was already working for a company. I built an app. My boss take it on, even though I presented to him, and I told him I felt it in my stomach. It was something I had to do. And I asked him if it was okay for me to work on it on nights and weekends. And everything just happened for a reason. And as I decided to start my own company, it was just me in my apartment. I T1 lines coming into the studio apartment I had, and I had my server in this studio apartment, just doing it all on my own because I didn't have the support. I couldn't raise the money didn't really recognize me as bankable, if you want to use that term. So it was quite a journey for me of just trying to find myself. And so I think when very tough because I didn't have any money when I started the company, but I was able to get a few friends to invest a bit of money into it. I just knew that this made me happy. I believed in what I was doing, and I just wouldn't take no for an answer. But I think the biggest lesson out of it was that I was willing not only to listen to what people were telling me, but I wasn't afraid to also call people. Didn't matter if they were white, black, Chinese, Japanese, African, it didn't matter. I would tell you about my idea, and I would tell you what I needed. And so I was very, very fortunate to have a lot of people support me along the way. So that's really the path that I took. When I finally sold the company, it was, to me, I didn't know what I was doing when they asked me how much do you want to sell the company for? I didn't even know that I wanted to sell it. I didn't have anyone really that could give me all the advice I needed. And so I started just doing math as to what I wanted in life to be able to identify what I was going to position as the price for selling the company. And so that's how I sold my first company. Very happy about it. Did a really good deal with it, and already knew what I wanted to do next. And at that point, I knew that I wanted to work for myself. I wanted that freedom that Carolyn's talking about, and it also was just a validation for myself that I was more than this young African girl that didn't speak English that came to UM through the intensive English program. And that validation just meant everything to me. And now my goal, even just being here in Africa right now, is to be able to share that with others, because it was hard not having anybody tell me that it was even possible at the time. So
that's awesome. And I love that you're saying that in terms of driving your business, you just reached out to a lot of different people. It didn't matter if they looked like you or didn't look like you, and having that vision and, that passion to drive it to completion, not looking at what your limits were, but looking at what the opportunity ahead of you was. So I look forward to seeing a lot more of what Bahram has in store through all of her different entrepreneurial goals. Now, when I look at this panel, this fabulous panel, all of you are essentially entrepreneurs. And so I want to shift now to Bill and Gerald and ask you this question, which is, what does it take to be a successful entrepreneur when we see the effects of the pandemic on Black businesses? They're being hit a lot harder than their white counterparts. When we see the different programs that got rolled out, a lot of the African-American businesses were not able to take advantage of those programs. So my question to you, and I'll start with you, Bill, is what can Black business owners do to be more successful financially?
I guess one of the programs you're talking about is the PPP program that was rolled out for small business owners. And unfortunately, a lot of not so small businesses actually got the money. For instance, I hear one professional football player who's making millions and his wife is making millions also, got almost $1 million of the funding that was available. But one of the things I feel fortunate, I spent 34 years and retired as a corporate executive. And in those years, I actually operated about $100 million division for the corporation. Therefore, I learned how to operate a business, understood the P&L, profit and loss statements and everything. And unfortunately, a lot of our small business owners, I don't know if the stat is correct, but a good friend of mine said 96% of African-American businesses, one employee, 96%. And it's just the person who started the business, who has the business. And unfortunately, they have not been mentored and gotten the advice needed to operate the business as a business. Many of them do not have an accountant or payroll. They don't have separate checking accounts, separate credit card accounts. It is all of those things that is needed, because with the PPP loan, which is backed by the Small Business Administration and the government, you had to have those things in place, and many of the businesses did not. And so one of the things, I'm working with a nonprofit now, and we are focusing on teaching specifically African-American business owners the things they need to do, as well as working with minority banks, the National Bankers Association, again, helping these small businesses, number one, have a bank account and know someone within a bank, also introducing them to certified CPAs to help them from that standpoint. Also, structuring the business properly as far as lawyer and all of that, because that's what I did when I established my business, and it has grown from year to year. And then I was able to get a PPP loan, and somebody said, "Bill, was it a hard process?" I said, "No, I have a payroll account." I asked them for certain information, and then I had other details, and I said, I put the application in one day, the next day the money was in my banking account. So it's just understanding the operation of a business, and then we just need to help educate folks on that. And just a final point, last year was a bad year for most businesses. It actually was a great year for my business because I had clients. I used to get on a plane and travel to do different things, but I told my clients, let's utilize what we're utilizing today, this technology. I said, we can do the same thing. We don't have to get on a plane. And I said, you can see me, I can see you, and we can conduct business that way. And that's the final point I'd like to make to business owners. You must learn how to innovate, be flexible, be able to change depending on what's happening and the environment you're in. If you are flexible and willing to learn, willing to change, you're certainly going to do well. And please embrace the new technology.
Bill, excellent point. I just want to remind our audience that if you have any questions for any of the panelists, you can just use your chat, which is to the right on Hopin platform, and just enter in your questions. And Gerald, is there anything that you would like to add to that in terms of what it takes to run a successful business?
It goes back to, you have to run your business like a business. A lot of people says, well, my business is doing great, but they don't want to pay taxes. So as a result of that, they don't really record all the information. But if you don't have that information, it's a double-edged sword. The banks are not going to lend you money if you can't demonstrate that you can't pay it back. So it goes back to, one, just like how you have a budget for yourself, you got to have a budget for your business. You're not in business to be in business. You don't want to be in nonprofit business. You want to be a business that's going to make money. So as a result of that, you got to have operating procedures that you follow weekly. You got to look at weekly goals. You got to look at cost saving things that you can do. And you need a team of people to help you achieve that. You can't do that by yourself. You need a good accountant. You need a good attorney. You need a good financial planner. You need somebody that's going to take you out of your own space. See, a lot of times people just want to do what they want to do. And just because you want to do it, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing to do. Many of the people that are the wealthiest people that are my clients today, the reason why they're my clients is that I told them, look, you can't go around doing that stuff you used to do, because just because you did it, that doesn't mean it was right. So you need somebody that's going to actually tell you these are the things that you really need to do. It's not that it's a lack of information, it's the fact it's a lack of implementation. You got to do this stuff. You really, really start with a budget, and you really got to work with it. And you got to let your staff know that they're in it, and everybody's got to work as a team. And I think if you put a structure in place that if you do well, you compensate your employees as well, you all will be successful together. You can't be successful without your team, and you can do a lot more with others than you can do by yourself.
Thank you, Gerald. Great points, especially on taxes, because a lot of businesses get hit with that taxes, and setting up your business correctly financially helps you to avoid those kind of surprises. Now, Gerald, as a financial planner, I do have a question for you in terms of what concerns you the most about the GameStop frenzy out there in terms of investing, and also the platform with Robinhood, right? And what advice do you have for first-time investors? Again, this is a get-rich thing where people were kind of wanting to get their money in so they could turn it into a lot of money. So I did hear one story where a man bought GameStop a long time ago, and because it rose so high, they became a millionaire. But go ahead and tell us what your thoughts are.
The big picture is there are always going to be things that are just happening that it's just new and it's going to create an opportunity. But that's not sustaining. A few people will make money, but not everyone is going to make money. I always go by the golden rule. Look, if there is consistency, and I could see predict. Look, I don't gamble. I always want to do something that's 51% or more in my favor. So I'm always going to look at the numbers and the things that have a history or track record. I would rather someone go out and buy a major company that's in the news, that's always been ongoing, and have a team of people that are generating economics and they can sustain themselves, as opposed to you hear about something. Yes, there's always going to be those things that occur, but the big companies are already making adjustments so that those things won't occur again in the future. So it's just a short-term thing that's generating short-term wealth, but you can't build and sustain your wealth that way.
Thank you, Gerald. And we will be having another session starting at 3 o'clock on home ownership as well as investing. So I would encourage you to join that session to learn a little bit more. Just a few more questions, and then I have an audience question. The first one I have is for Bill. Some people feel that they have to pay thousands of dollars to get their credit fixed. What are the top tips to repair your credit yourself and save?
Couple of things as far as repairing your credit. Most people don't know that from now, well, it was most of last year and up until the end of April this year, you can actually go and get a copy of your credit report on a weekly basis. You go to www.annualcreditreport.com. www.annualcreditreport.com, and then you go then to pull your Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion. You can pull all three on a weekly basis. You don't need to do it weekly, but the first thing you want to do is make sure the information in your credit report is accurate. If it's not accurate, you can do all of this online, dispute it online with each of the credit reporting agencies. And that's the first step that I would recommend. They have 30 to 45 days to verify the information, and you can scan in information, your documentation and everything to the credit reporting agencies. Do not use any company that's going to charge you up front for credit advice. Go to a reputable credit counseling agency, and you can recognize those agencies by going to www.nfcc.org. www.nfcc.org. That's the National Foundation for Credit Counselors. They have over 150 different certified agencies that do not charge you up front for the counseling service. One of the things they do is put you on a budgeting plan. If you are really in deep trouble, they will set up a debt management program. They do charge a fee for that, but most of their counseling is absolutely free to consumers, and I recommend that people do that. But you can do a lot yourself by going and getting a copy of your credit report, making sure it's accurate, and dispute items that's on there, and credit reporting agencies will work with you.
Thanks, Bill. First audience question that we have here: what resources, books, classes, etc., would you recommend for individuals looking to improve their financial literacy and entrepreneurs looking to be successful and take that next step? Gerald, do you want to take a stab at that one first?
I've written a simple book over 11 years ago. It's called Bold Moves to Creating Financial Wealth. It's designed to teach basic financial literacy. It's about budgeting. It's about paying yourself first. It's about living below your means. It's about how to shop and save 20 to 30% on everything you buy. It's about creating your own bank. So now when you want to buy something, you borrow from yourself. And then there's a whole chapter on investing. The stock market is not new. It's been around for years. If on an average, the S&P is averaged over 10%, and people are still not investing, it's because you gotta start and read it somewhere. So a simple way they could do this, they could just Google my name, Gerald Grant Jr. It will take them to my site, and they could actually get the book, not only the one that talks about accumulating wealth, but the one that talks about once you've accumulated, how do you then teach the next generation the values, the mindset, the habits and things that they've got to form so that they not only accumulate wealth, they can now build wealth for the next generation.
Thank you. Bahram, do you have any books that you use as an entrepreneur to help give you some footing? Or Carolyn? Do you guys have any books or resources that you recommend?
I'll let Carolyn take that.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
gonna go. Actually, no, but I'm gonna go pick up Gerald Grant for sure.
Okay. Bill, do you have any other financial books that you would recommend? I will say that Khan Academy has personal finance classes that you can do online to sharpen your skills. CNBC also has a wealth of knowledge out there on personal finance.
Okay. Yeah, I would recommend this website, www.jumpstart.org. Their clearinghouse has about 700 different, sometimes full curricula and books, all on personal finance, and all of the material has been vetted. It is not promotional material that they have on their website. I was affiliated with them for about 25 years. So I know its reputation and it's reputable. And I especially recommend this to parents to go there and get material to help educate your children.
Okay.
And one other book, and my wife bought this for me for Christmas, and I want to shout out Kimball. Kimball has a great book out.
Oh, you're kind, Carolyn.
Hey, no, I'm not just saying that because you're on here, but you do have a great book. Learned a lot from it, and I'd just like to shout out that book as well. And I got that for my Christmas gift. My wife bought me that.
Wow, that's nice. Thank you. Okay, so we're like 8 minutes away, and so I just have some quick questions that I want to ask. Bahram, women and African Americans are one of the largest groups that have been impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. And also when we look at entrepreneurs, specifically, women African Americans are taking the plunge faster than any other group. How do you think women who may have a business idea can get started?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or if you know of any mentorship
Just before that,
organizations
though,
that
if you
you
don't
recommend.
mind, but I don't have a book to add something. But I don't have a book to recommend at the top of my head right now. One of the greatest things that happened to me in learning was actually at the University of Miami and being involved in so many organizations. And that helped me learn a whole lot. And that was a practical learning. Including being part of SAFAC, being part of student government, being part of the African Students Union, being involved with COSO and COISO. All of those organizations actually helped us develop certain skills, from leadership to budgeting to accounting to governance. And these are all skills that will help you as you try to build your own company. So if there are any students that are in the audience, I really strongly recommend that you get as involved as you can in whatever organization you can be involved in while you're there, especially at UM, because there's a lot of money being invested in that area. But when it comes to women and African Americans and starting their own business, to me, it's a journey, right? And you have to know what you're doing for. And it all starts with an idea. And we know that as women, we're crafty. We always have ideas. But the biggest advice that I give to the entrepreneurs I work with here in Africa or in the US is, first, you have to think big. That it just starts with that, because as women, we have this challenge of sometimes only wanting to deal with what we know we can handle today. But we need to think big beyond ourselves, knowing that we're looking to build a big company with a number of employees, so it goes beyond us as individuals. But while we're thinking big, we need to also start small. So just because you're starting a company doesn't mean that right away you need to go and get big offices and get all these employees hired, et cetera, et cetera. You don't have to pay salaries, negotiate giving them equity at the beginning. And because you also have tested them first and understand the value they're bringing to you. Work from home, work from Zoom. I still work from home most of the time. So these are expenses that you don't have to make. If you don't, the biggest thing about entrepreneurship is being creative. And if you don't have the money, be creative on how you're going to get to where you're going, because that will even take you further along. Well, we don't have as many female entrepreneurs, especially in the digital space. I'm part of a group actually called Visible Figures. We just exchange messages all the time and help each other out. One of the things that we do know is that when Black women start their companies, they go straight for revenue because they cannot depend on raising a lot of money from venture capital funds. So their businesses are actually very sane. They're just still a little bit small. So it's more question of, again, thinking big and then starting small. So that's, I guess, the best advice I can give within the limited time we have. As you can tell, I'm very
passionate. It's great, Bram. Thank you so much. And then, Carolyn, what advice do you have for athletes that are trying to find a plan B like you did? Carolyn, you're muted.
Great question. So understand what you want to do in life. What is your goal? What is it that you want to do? And don't give up on it, okay? Just work hard, like as is, you practice every day, just work hard after playing football. So what is that goal? What is it that you want to do? And put it up there and say, I'm striving for that goal. So whatever it takes to achieve that goal, I think tremendous future insight. So
thank you. And our last audience question is, when first starting out in business and earning income, what are the signs or triggers monetarily that would indicate it's time to seek outside assistance? For example, accounting, banking, advising, if you are a sole proprietor or a consultant. Anyone is welcome to take that one. Not everyone at the same.
I will just say those are the first folks you need to see when you're establishing your business. You don't need to wait to do that, because that's going to be a key to your financial success. I see the guys have their mics unmuted, so I'll just let you, Carolyn, I think you wanted to answer.
Yeah, so another thing, relationships with bankers. Gotta have a relationship with bankers.
Right.
Day one, with me, especially, having a line of credit, you need that line of credit to keep cash flow going. Like Gerald said earlier, cash is king. That's my motto. Cash is king. Without cash, I can't run my business. I gotta constantly have cash, but without having a relationship with the banks, and what a dollar amount, I don't know. If you don't understand, if QuickBooks stopped working for you, better hire a CPA. Because QuickBooks could take you so far. So if QuickBooks can't do what you do, stop doing that. Start hiring a CPA. And again, that relationship with your banker. I don't care how much, how small. Walk into that bank, let them know who you are, what you're about, what the company is about. And sometimes they give you some ideas and some opportunities, some CBA loans that you may not know of that they could provide for you, So think about that, and that's about it.
Okay. Well, that concludes our panel discussion. I would like to thank you all. Thank you, Bahram, Bill, Gerald, and Carolyn for sharing with our University of Miami community. Are there any other resources that anyone wanted to share before we sign off? Well, everyone's doing it properly, right? Not the Ute symbol. Thanks to the Black Alumni Society for sharing in our story as we strive to build our village together and to close this wealth gap. As I noted earlier, this is a 3-day multi-event. At 3 o'clock, we're going to have events on Investments in Homeownership, led by Jessica Taylor and Asghar Ali. Thank you so much for your time today, and we really appreciate you. Oh. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.